G'day all! Well, this should have been made and uploaded a bit earlier than it currently is. But better late than never, I guess. So, I'm going to be listing out the new Australian movement's policies. Rehashed, given the fact that my previous attempt on BitChute and Rumble were, as I've said before, abysmal failures. I'm not going to ignore their existence, I'm just going to say the fact that a lot of my opinions have upgraded and improved since then. So, let's get to the most pivotal part of it first, the housing policy. As we already know, the housing market here in Australia is at a massive boiling point and is a fundamental component of our cost of living crisis. What I'm calling the old political order, the current one, only ever seems capable of either offering, half solutions, vague solutions to single points of the issue, or outright non-solutions whatsoever, or even promises to make everything worse. For instance, the unrealised gains tax that we've got currently being offered right now hasn't been implemented, but we know it's going to be put in first. If people think for a second that's going to work, you're lying to yourselves. For starters, that unrealised gains tax is going to have a whole lot of exemptions to it. I mean, do you think Albanese or any of his little cohorts are going to be paying up to $500 million worth of unrealised gains on all their investment properties? Not a chance. Nor so would any of their billionaire or union friends. And goodness heavens, you think for a second that investment firms like BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street are going to offer up the abysmal amounts of money they'd have to owe in unrealised gains? Definitely not. And I'd like to also point out my biggest example of that, Mike Cannon-Brookes, who has his own personal island. Yeah, where the heck do you think he's going to cough up the unrealised gains for that? Not going to happen. Instead, the unrealised gains are quite literally just going to be focused on us. The people who have likely just taken out massive mortgages for their homes. In other words, it's just a means of basically kicking more people out of the housing market. Even worse so of the negative gearing thing. Look, I'm not a fan of negative gearing either, but I know for a fact you take it out there, you're not going to help other people become first home buyers, you're just going to shrink the market pool of investment home owners. So, now that I've done that little ranting about the old orders idea, let's put on what the new Australian movement would have as a comprehensive plan for housing. Make no mistake, these plans are not perfect, and even at face value, I'm pretty sure a lot of you will see a fair amount of flaws. But let's get into it. First one is obvious enough, the whole immigration situation. Now, it's my opinion there that immigration as a whole should be reduced by between 90 to 95%. Personally, I would like for there to be a full halt on all immigration for the next 5 to 10 years, but we know that's not truly going to be possible. So, a reduction down to about 15 to 20,000 people a year would be the next best thing. This would also have the benefit of being able to alleviate some of the massive burden on our already overstrained utilities and infrastructure, something we'd also need to work on developing more of. Second point, home ownership and rental markets should prioritise housing citizens first. The reason to that should be self-explanatory, but I'm going to explain anyway. That is basically dealing with the homeless situation that we've got, which is getting further and further out of hand with these tent cities that are starting to pop up now. Even I'm starting to see some here in Perth. So when it comes to either the rental lineups or even home ownership auctions, etc., first priority is basically dealing with who's a citizen and who isn't. If you're a citizen, show proof of it, done, you're in for the auction. If you're not a citizen or can't show proof that you are a citizen, we'd politely ask you to leave. Simple as that. Third, this is going to be the fun part. Property and land ownership as a whole will be delisted as a type of investment and should be followed up by making the following steps. First, all foreign-owned property and land. I hate the fact that I'm reading this off a script, but this is my own script, so thank goodness for that. As I was saying beforehand, all foreign-owned property and land will be retaken via the Commonwealth Acquisition Act. This will likely result in property market value drop, which I'm not one to care about crashing the market. I think we actually need to make an artificial crash before a natural one comes in and fucks everything up. So, following that, second, all domestically owned investment properties will be put through what's known as a compelled sale. The investor homeowners will be given the choice of either selling the house at full market value and face a very hefty capital gains tax. I'd say as much as about 70% capital gains, and all that for the greedier ones especially. Or you can have the second option of completely avoiding the capital gains tax by selling the property at half the market value. This would have the obvious effect of dropping the market down even further, making housing more affordable for first-time homeowners. As for those who are homeowners currently and have got a massive mortgage, the obvious thing is basically this would force them to renegotiate the mortgages accordingly. This would be one of the first things that the New Australian movement would have a hands-on approach if they ever got governance. Why is there so much dust in here all of a sudden? Fourth, property construction will be given significant deregulation, given that a lot of regulations are unnecessary and a fair few are just for vanity reasons anyway. Fifth, housing construction will be primarily built with the following requirements, so there will be some planning, permits and regulations. The property should exist on a minimum land amount of 1,250 square metres. Now originally I was going to go with 1/4 acre, but seeing that the 1/4 acre goes to about, 1,010 square metres? Yeah, wow, we are great at measuring, aren't we? So I decided 1,250 square metres seems the better option. Average dimensions would be about 25 metres wide by 50 metres long. Now the house itself should also be built on stumped foundation and made predominantly out of timber. Being that stumped foundation is cheaper and quicker to build upon, as well as using timber, that also makes it even cheaper. They're also easier to build with and have a whole bunch of extra benefits to them. Right, I've already listed off some of the construction benefits there. The other one is basically the construction materials would be more easily and readily available. Cheaper and acquisition would also create new avenues of work. For instance, we'd have new lumber companies coming around, or new timber companies. Furthermore, I've noticed that a lot of the lumber companies, or / timber companies in general, have a greater expertise than some of our current agricultural experts, or even agriculture ministers. They'd be incentivized of replanting more trees after they've cut some down, not just for environmental purposes, but also to encourage more business afterward. A better replenishment of materials. So I'd say the avenue of basically cut one tree down, plant 4 more in its place. Not directly next to each other, because that's a terrible idea, though I'm pretty sure all of them would already know that. They would also happen to know what plant life and what trees go where. Once again, to a better extent than our agricultural ministry does. Past events seem to have proven that one correct. Maintenance and upkeep of this type of housing is actually far easier, not just for homeowners, but also for any utility workers who are called in for technical problems, as a lot of the utility lines are either easy to access underneath the house, and some of them especially are located outside as well, especially gas and water pipes. This also actually has a better situation that even if the utility lines are considered underneath the house, so like plumbing in general, let's just say that's far easier to work on stump foundation than it is with a concrete slab foundation. Easiest one being, if you have a utility fault or problem detected in the actual plumbing underneath the house, yeah, you're not going to be screwed unless if it's a stumped foundation. Utility workers are going to be much easier able to get at that. If it's a concrete slab foundation, let's just say if the utility lines are busted in that concrete slab, you're kind of screwed. As for the other maintenance, accidents in general as well. Yeah, contrary to popular belief, having a fire in a concrete and brick home would still require that damaged area to be knocked down. Doing that in a wooden home, especially if it's treated and fire resistant, yeah, the damaged area would be a lot easier to repair. And the last one is basically foundational work as well. If you got damage to a stump foundation, you can repair the damaged foundations and the area around it, or adjust accordingly. Slab foundation, good luck. If you get a crack in that one there, your house is screwed. Drop it down, build a new one, cough up every penny you got. The added space of this type of housing as well would also be much more beneficial. First off, it would be beneficial for privacy reasons. No need to explain the importance there. Secondly, the added space would be beneficial in terms of mental and physical health. Yeah, those who live in apartments, those who live in congested housing, I'm pretty sure you already know exactly what I'm talking about on that regard. As people's mental health tends to deteriorate in these congested environments, it feels like you're living in prison cells more than actual homes, doesn't it? It would also actually have another secondary benefit on that one of being environmentally beneficial, as the added plant life would equal to a greater quality of air to breathe and natural temperature moderation. That would also accumulate with the fact that the, once again, stump foundation will also act as an extra natural ventilation too. Lastly would be self-sustainability. The added amount of land would also equal a greater amount of area to plant fruit and vegetable gardens as well as having a nice little chook pen on the side for those who wish to, which would have another benefit of alleviating some of the burden on our farmers and ensuring that, in case of food insecurity, the people actually have a means of sustaining themselves, even if just for a long enough time. So that's fun and beneficial to all. In terms of the rental market, this is the last one. The same thing about prioritising citizens applies here too. Yada, 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 yada. Another thing to note is that unless it's in an apartment complex, there should otherwise be no career/business landlords. For fuck's sake. I would prefer small, independent business owners who also own secondary homes, predominantly for housing some of their employees as well. These same people would actually see landlordship as more of a side hustle, so they're less incentivized to be greedy on that sense. And especially if they're housing their own employees there as well. This would also work when it comes to shared homes, not for landlords not for business owners, but more so those who have higher income brackets or are basically either family friends, regular friends, or relatives in general. So, sweeter deals. That's the conclusive, if not absolutely convoluted explanation I have for the New Australia Movement's policy on housing and, to a lesser extent, immigration. I'll work more extensively on that at a later time. Like I've said before, this is by no means a great plan, but infinitely better than what we are currently being offered. Leave your criticisms down below and we'll just work from there. See yous!